Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 37th annual Green Thumb Grow Together. I'm Bill Lasasso, and I serve as director of NYC Parks Green Thumb. Before we begin, I want to offer a reminder that we are excited to offer live translations of this year's conference in Spanish. You can find the details on how to access this service in the chat. As many of you know, Grow Together usually takes place at the beginning of each spring in anticipation of the season ahead. But due to the unique circumstances of this year, our team felt that moving the conference to February might offer a welcome reprieve from the winter weather that, alongside the pandemic, is keeping many of us in our homes and out of the gardens. February is also, of course, Black History Month. And this gives us the extra opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate the leadership and legacy of so many Black New Yorkers in founding and stewarding the gardens. Thank you for your years of leadership and for making our city a better place. That contribution cannot be overstated. Of course, the format of this Grow Together is different from years past, but then this has been a very different year than in years past. Since we last gathered for Grow Together, we've experienced a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic, turning our lives upside down, threatening our health, our livelihoods, and our ability to be close to loved ones and friends, and tragically claiming the lives of millions of people, many of whom we call friends and family. The pandemic has laid bare the inequities of our society, reminding us once again of how much remains to be done to dismantle systemic racism and injustice in the United States and ensure that the reality of our nation matches its aspirations. We've also experienced the continued impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss. Last year was the second hottest year on record. Across our nation, cities and states have experienced record floods, wildfires, and now record snowfalls, a stark reminder of how we must strive to be better stewards of our environment, lest pandemics become more than a once-in-a-lifetime event. We're facing enormous challenges, yet the fact that we still gather here today is reason to celebrate. Given the almost insurmountable challenges of the last year, the theme of this year's Grow Together is Gardens of Resilience. And I can think of no group of New Yorkers who are more resilient than community gardeners. Out of what were once vacant lots, Green Thumb community gardeners have cultivated green oases that beautify, feed, and unify neighborhoods across the city. Gardeners helped to lead New York out of the crisis of the 1970s and are helping to lead New York out of the many crises that we face today. Despite having every reason to give up, community gardeners have persevered. In the midst of the pandemic, gardeners grew food to help feed fellow New Yorkers, keep our gardens open to provide safe, open spaces, continue to care for these special spaces that provide an opportunity for us to come together. They've created hubs of sustainability and resilience in neighborhoods across the city that help protect our environment and offer ways for New Yorkers to get involved in their community. Your work is seen and you are appreciated. And the entire Green Thumb team is proud to work alongside you on behalf of our city and our environment. And we are honored to gather with you today and this whole week to celebrate community gardens and community gardeners and the amazing and positive impact that you have had for the past 4 decades and that you continue to have today. Community gardeners across New York have been gathering at the Grow Together conference every year since 1984 to celebrate the start of the garden season with a day of learning, networking, and reconnecting with friends. And we hope that despite not being able to be in person today, this virtual platform will allow us to preserve Grow Together's tradition of serving as a venue for an annual gardener family reunion. And so please allow me a moment to provide some tips on how to best interact and enjoy this year's conference. I encourage you to turn on your cameras, and if you have them, by clicking on your camera icon and scrolling through the pages of participants to see all of the amazing gardeners tuning in today and give them a wave. We invite you to introduce yourself now in the chat. Let us know if you're part of a community garden and where you're tuning in from. Being virtual this year means that we can welcome participants from all over the country and across the globe. We'll also use the chat for Q&A. So if you have any questions today throughout the day, please add those to the chat and we will hold on to them. If you'd like to ask anonymously, you can send your question privately in the chat to my colleague and GreenThumb Deputy Director, Carlos Martinez. Please also join the GreenThumb GrowTogether Slack channel to visit the GreenThumb kiosk and chat with fellow attendees in the virtual lounge. We also will be putting that link for you into the chat. I want to acknowledge and thank the entire GreenThumb staff who are supporting the conference in so many ways, and for their hard work and creativity in making this year's Grow Together a reality. With special recognition for Tawana Bush, Mara Gittleman, and Elena Dubas, whose vision and optimistic show must go on mindset has ensured that the Grow Together tradition continues. We're also grateful to have support today from Hannah and Kate from Partnerships for Parks, whom you can message if you're having any technical difficulties with Zoom today. I also want to thank our workshop and webinar facilitators who have generously lent their time and expertise to make this another great conference. We appreciate you all. And now, please join me in giving a warm welcome to NYC Parks Commissioner Mitchell J. Silver, who will be sharing remarks and offering a land acknowledgement as we kick off this 37th annual GreenThumb Grow Together. He's an award-winning urban planner and oversees 30,000 acres of parkland across New York City. As the mayor has observed, he has a passion for fairness and equality, and he has made equity central to everything that NYC Parks does. Welcome this morning, Commissioner Silver.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, gardeners, greening professionals, and everyone in between. It is my pleasure to join you all this morning for the 37th annual GreenThumb Grow Together conference. I'm also honored to offer New York City Parks' first land acknowledgement as part of this conference. I'd like to begin by thanking our guests here today, including our keynote speaker, Shadona Brownlee, as well as many representatives from our sister agencies and community organizations. I'd also like to give a special shout out to all the dedicated GreenThumb staff who have worked tirelessly to bring this week's conference together for all of you. And it was led by GreenThumb Director Bill Lasasso and GreenThumb Deputy Director Carlos Martinez. I'm also happy to be here today to officially kick off the 2021 gardening season. The Grow Together Conference is a time-honored tradition at Parks, offering a wonderful selection of gardening lectures, tutorials, workshops, and so much more. And this conference truly strikes to the core of GreenThumb's primary mission, to support our volunteers' vital work building and sustaining vibrant community gardens across the city. For over 40 years, community gardens have been at the forefront of our work to increase access to beautiful green space and stewardship opportunities. In addition to today's conference, GreenThumb provides free programming citywide and material to approximately 600 community gardens and more than 550 school gardens. And in a year like any other, our parks, green spaces, and gardens have been valued like never before. Despite COVID-19 pandemic, our staff have continued to work on the front lines, keeping our parks and gardens open. In 2020 alone, GreenThumb staff delivered over 110,000 plants starts to gardens across the city, assisted in the renovation of 15 community gardens, added over 375 raised garden beds and 2 new chicken coops, and delivered over 2,000 cubic yards of compost and soil. But of course, successful gardens would not be possible without you, our dedicated volunteers who work just as hard to maintain these valuable green spaces. With over 20,000 GreenThumb garden members in New York City, you help to make our city open spaces more accessible and equitable for all New Yorkers. I want to thank you all for your hard work and dedication maintaining these spaces during the most difficult time of the year. As part of this conference, I am also honored to offer New York City Parks' first land acknowledgement. It feels appropriate, and I'm in a good company to do so among so many diverse and thoughtful land stewards from across the city, country, and world. We are here in New York City. We are on the historic land of the Lenape peoples. I ask you today to join me in acknowledging the multitude of diverse Lenape and Lenape nations in this region, as well as the Canarsie, the Lakawi Rockaways, the Wappinger, the Matinecock peoples, and their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. New York City Parks also acknowledges that our city was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to the beginning process of working to dismantle the negative ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Thank you all for joining us this morning. And once again, it is my honor to welcome you all to the 37th Grow Together Conference. And as always, I will see you in the parks. Thank you, and Bill, back to you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for joining us this morning, and thank you for your leadership in these challenging times past year. As we all know, this has been an inconceivable year for us all. The losses that we've suffered almost seem unbearable, and we all continue to mourn the beloved friends and garden members that we've lost in recent years, including to the current global health crisis. They will forever be a part of the GreenThumb family, and we all find inspiration in their contributions to our city and their legacy of service, which we recognize and celebrate now. I know that we'll all continue to keep all of the gardeners and loved ones that we've lost in our memories, and that our continued stewardship of the gardens honors their legacies. Each year, GreenThumb holds a competition for New Yorkers to submit designs for the annual Grow Together logo. And we had many great submissions to choose from once again this year. This year's winner is Paul Caicedo, whose design will be used as a downloadable stencil in the DIY screen printing webinar from 12 to 1:30 p.m. on Sunday, February 21st. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Paul on the winning design.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually very honored that you guys chose my design, and I'm happy to actually take part into this whole movement. You know that I myself love nature, and I'm not completely involved, but I know loved ones around me that are. My sister is very involved in this, in projects like this, and hopefully this is my start to actually, you know, throw myself into the mix. And I'm glad that you chose it again, and I did it with a lot of love, and I got a lot of appreciation for what you guys do and the work that you do, and it just changes communities all around. And thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for contributing to this Grow Together and for your hard work and on winning the annual design competition. We'll now hear entertaining short stories about gardens and gardening by professional storyteller and GreenThumb garden leader, Tammy Hall. Her repertoire includes hundreds of folktales filled with wit and wisdom from around the world. We'll be sharing different stories of hers throughout the week.
The girl tasted the food. She had never tasted frozen food from a store before. She had never tasted canned food from a store before. But now she was in college. She had no choice. You see, she grew up on a farm with her 10 brothers and sisters, and her mother and father grew huge gardens, and they depended on those gardens for all their food. Her mother was a scientific genius when it came to canning foods and storing foods for the winter. And so she grew up tasting and eating the most delicious things. How it all started was, the woman got married when she was about 13 years old. And at 14, she began to have children. They had 2 children, so she told her husband, listen, if I'm gonna have children, I'm gonna need a farm because I intend to have 6 children. Well, her husband complied and they got the farm. And they started having more children, and they grew huge gardens right behind the house. Everything in those gardens, peas, tomatoes, carrots, onions, everything you could name they had close to the house, and they depended on those foods. And more children came. So the mother decided she needed a cornfield, so they would have enough corn to eat and enough to sell so that she could take care of her children. So they planted the corn and grew the cornfield and sold the corn and ate the corn and continued to live off the gardens. And then more children came. And the mother decided that on the hill behind the cornfield would be a nice place for a pea patch. And so she grew several varieties of peas, all kinds of peas. And she would can some and freeze some and take some to the market to sell. And that's how they lived. So the girl grew up all her life eating these wonderful, wonderful foods. So when she tasted that food when she went to college, she was in for quite a shock. I know that girl very well because that girl is me. I am storyteller Tammy Hall, and I grew up eating wonderful, wonderful foods grown by my mother and my father. And as years went on, I learned to plant and to grow. All of the children learned to plant and to grow. And now my mother is 95 years old and she still lives on that farm. And horses roam where once gardens grew. But now the grandchildren are here, the great-grandchildren are here. And our goal this summer is to teach them how to plant, how to grow, to continue the legacy of gardening and depending on the land for some wonderful, wonderful foods. That's it. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to GreenThumb's 37th annual Grow Together conference. I am storyteller Tammy Hall, and I'm so delighted to be here with you today to share some fun tales and hopefully some poignant tales that you might enjoy. So have a great time at the conference, and let me just go ahead and get started with something fun. This story was written by Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy. It's a very short story, but I think it's kind of funny. I hope you like it. A peasant decided one night that he was going to steal watermelons from the farmer's garden. So as he was creeping on the ground, planning how he was going to steal these watermelons, he got lost in thought. And he thought to himself, well, if I could steal a whole bag, then I can sell them. And then I could buy myself a nice juicy hen who will lay many eggs. When the eggs hatch, I'll have many chicks. I can sell the chicks and buy myself a nice fat sow who will make many piglets. Then I can sell the piglets and buy myself a fine mare. The mare will produce many tiny coats. I can sell the coats and I will buy myself a big house and I'll have a big garden and I'll grow many watermelons, but I certainly won't be foolish enough to have them stolen. I'll have watchmen and I myself will guard the garden. And if a thief should come, I will yell, watch carefully. He was so lost in thought, he didn't realize he was yelling. But when he yelled, the watchmen guarding the farmer's garden watched him carefully, all right. They chased him down and beat him soundly and chased him out of the garden. And that is exactly what a watermelon thief deserves. And that's the end of that tale.
Thank you, Tammy, for those great stories. Looking forward to hearing some more.